Hey everyone, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and today we are in the sewing room. So if you want to see what we're going to be sewing, stick around. Thanks everyone for sticking around. I really appreciate you coming to my sewing room and seeing what we're working on today. Well, if you're like me, you're getting a little tired of this cold, dreary weather and you're ready to get outside and you're looking for signs of spring. I was just outside the other day and I noticed my chives. I was like, there's something green in that pot over there. And it's my chives. They've kind of stuck out and they're starting to turn green. And so that's my first sign of spring outside. So I'm anxious to get out in the garden. I'm anxious to work on a few projects that Andy and I have planned on doing out in the yard. And I'm anxious to start getting fruits and vegetables that are fresh from our garden. But right now it's still cold out. And so what I thought I'd do is just sew springy things to get my mind off of the dreariness. So what I've done, I have made a pieced rabbit block. I've designed this block and I've gone through several sizes, several different positions of the rabbit, and I finally settled on this one. I think this one is the easiest to make and I thought it was just really cute. So if you like this rabbit block and you would like to make a pillow like this, or if you just want to turn it into a wall hanging or a mat, you might, here's a different colorway, it's just this, it's a very similar block. This was made before the one we're going to be making in this video, but it has just a few differences, but it can be the same block that we're making turned into a wall hanging or a table topper. And I'm going to turn mine into a door hanger, and I'll probably put it on our entry door. So I thought that would be cute for spring. And this one has more of the Easter colors, the kinds that we grew up with. And this is a nice line of fabric that I had a fat eighth of. So I'm going to bring you down to the sewing table and we're going to start sewing this up. Now, if you want the cutting directions, you're going to find those in the description box below. It is a free PDF. You just click on that link and it'll come up and then you will print it. I've had one or two people comment that they've had a hard time getting the PDF to open or to print. Make sure that you have some sort of PDF reader on your tablet, your phone, or your computer. Otherwise, it won't be able to read the PDF. You can get Adobe free. You just download it, and that's a perfect one to use. But reach out if you still are having trouble, and I will try to help you get this downloaded. So let's go to the sewing table and let's make this.
In part 1 of this video, we are just going to be making the bunny block and the carrot block and putting them together. Then in part 2, we'll be taking the block, adding sashing, borders, and turning it into a pillow. So here's how you make the block. So before we get started making our block, let me just show you what you're going to find in the download in the description box. You're going to find a drawing of the bunny block, and the pieces are all labeled with letters. You're also going to find a drawing of the carrot block, and also all the pieces are labeled with letters. And so you could do the bunny block by itself. You don't have to have the carrot with it. It's just up to you. And what I'm using for this today is the bunny and the carrot. You can make multiples, and we'll talk about some other layouts that you could do with these blocks. But to make either the topper or the pillow, we're going to be using both blocks. And so we're going to start with the bunny block. And what I have done, you'll also have this in your description box below in the downloads. This will all be in one little PDF pack. You just pull it up, you just click on the link and it pulls it up, and you can print it if you'd like. So I have here the measurement of the bunny block itself is 9 inches by 12 inches. And that's finished size. So it's going to be 9.5 by 12.5 unfinished when you finish making it. I have the bunny fabric, which is the light gray here. I have the background fabric, which is the white. Then in this separate chart down here, I have the carrot block. So I've separated them out so you don't have to have them together, and you can choose to make one or the other or both, however you want to do it, because there's uses for each of these blocks if you want to add them to different quilts or placemats. So what we're going to do here, down here, is you have your carrot fabric, which is for the carrot itself. You have the carrot stem fabric, which is the darker gray up here, and you have the background fabric, which are these areas in the white. So this is all laid out real nicely for your cutting instructions. You have the letter that coincides with the piece, and you also have the number of pieces you need to cut for each of those letters. So we're going to be looking at this quite a bit. I have already cut all of my blocks. I have put the bunny block on this board. Everything's labeled. And this is the carrot block. The fabric that I'm using for this project today is a fabric from Wyndham Fabrics, and it's called Forget Me Not, and it's by Allison Harris, and I believe she's with Cluck Cluck Sew. It is a fat 1/8 bundle that I had received in a Sew Sampler box. I don't know if it's been a year, 2 or 3 ago. It's not a whole long time ago, but it's been a while back. And it's some pretty fabrics in kind of primary colors. And so I was able to pick out a fabric for the carrot, a fabric for the bunny, and a fabric for the stem. And so that's what I'm using for my bunny and my carrot. And these, if I were wanting to make a quilt or a long table runner or something bigger, I could make more bunnies with the rest of this fabric. And I'll probably be using some of this for the border too. So I just needed to choose 3 colors for our main block. So that's what I chose right there. So we're going to put the carrot pattern away because we're going to work on the bunny block first. And I am just going to put my fabric cuts right next to my sewing machine. And I am going to put my diagram right there, and I'll have my cutting instructions nearby in case I want to make sure I've got the right size if I think maybe I miscut or something. Okay, so the first thing, what we're going to do, this bunny pattern, you're going to be doing a lot of stitch and flips. And this whole section right here will be made. And then this section here will be made. And then we're going to sew this section to this section. And then we're going to put this to this. Now, I do not have a tail on my bunny because my plan, I tried this several different ways. I built a tail into the block and it just didn't look as well as I'd like it to. So my plan is to do an applique bunny tail, and you could use fluffy material like a minky. You can use a fabric from your stash. It wouldn't even have to be white. You can use whatever you'd like for your applique tail. And I thought that looked the best when I was going through and doing all of my blocks when I was testing this pattern. So let's get started. We're going to start with the head, and then we're going to do this piece here, the head and the ear, and that will go pretty quickly. So I need block or fabric piece A. I need fabric piece I need fabric piece J. That means 2 of them. I'll need, let's just start with this block first. So this one, and you need to be careful with this block because it is a little different. It's not a perfect square, and we're going to be putting it the length this way. It's a rectangle, and the long direction is going like this. So we're going to be putting make sure my fabric is right sides together. This is a tone on tone. There's my I. We're going to put a J on this corner and a J on this corner. And then I've got some J's left, so I'm going to put those back and back on my board. I'm going to take the A and the I and put those letters back into my little container. Then I keep them in. And I got this little cute container from, I think, the dollar store. And I think it was just $1. And isn't it cute? There's a red lidded one and a yellow lidded one that I've got also, and I thought they were cute and they work perfect for this. And then I'll just put my clips in their little container too. So I'll just kind of clean up after myself so that we can keep things organized. So what I'm gonna do, if you've been sewing with me, you know that I like to use friction pins, and I don't normally draw the lines, but there are several people who are new to my channel and maybe new to this, and they might need to see and do the lines, and that is perfectly fine. I used the lines for a long time when I first started quilting. What we're going to do is I'm going to put my ruler on this corner and on this corner, and I am going to draw a line. And you want to be exact, okay? Now, when I sew this, it's okay for me to go a thread's thickness on the outside of this line, because whenever we fold this back, it's going to be a little bulky, and so a thread thickness on the outside is okay, okay? Now, if you know me, you know that I already have seam tape on my bed of my sewing machine, and so I can use the seam tape instead of drawing these lines. And if you have seam tape, that will work great. Let me see if I can, here it is right here. So this is seam tape, and it's actually by Cluck Cluck Sew, the person who designed this fabric. And you can find this at any fabric store. Also, I've noticed now online at different stores, they have just a non-brand one. I don't know if it's from China or what, but it has the same lines. You can actually mark your lines on your sewing machine using a Sharpie as well. I mean, or just use plain tape and mark the tape that you're using. But if I can find a link, I will put it for this in the description box. But the seam tape is so nice, and once you get used to using it, it makes it real easy, and you don't have to do all of these lines. So then on this block, we're going to go corner to corner, just like that. So I don't know if you can see my lines, but they're there. And if you need to, you can stick a pin, stick it far enough away so that when you run your sewing machine foot over this, that you're not going to hit the pin. And another way of doing this is if you have small squares, and this is going to have some small squares. I'm just grabbing some tape or some glue over here. You can use a little bit of Elmer's glue, and you want to use it on the outside of the square out here, because this is going to be cut off. So nothing on this side of the line, and you can put a little heat on that, but not before you draw your line. And you can do the same thing over here. If you're not sewing right away, it'll dry in just a minute too without heat. So those are both options of holding that. So what I'm going to do when I run this through my machine, so I don't have to spend a lot of time lifting up my presser foot and cutting my thread, I'm going to start over here. I am going to go across here, then pick up my presser foot, but don't cut the threads. Turn my presser foot this way, sew this direction, go off, pick up my presser foot, but do not cut the threads, then put it back down here and sew to here. That way I don't have to break my thread for any of that, and that'll go real quickly. So I am going to be sewing all of this, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so I have all 3 of those squares sewn on, and if you can see this, and I'm not sure if you can, here is my drawn line, and then my stitches right here next to it, just right next to it. And that helps because when I fold this back and press it, this extra bulk here will sometimes shorten it, and that way we have just a hair more fabric over there to help us match that up. So what I'm going to do is I am going to first of all check and make sure all of my seams or the stitches are good enough so that when I flip back that square, it covers up the triangle behind it. And sometimes you got to pull it a little bit, and that one's close, but it's going to work. Okay, so now I'm going to cut the outside corners 1/4 of an inch away from that seam, so we have some seam allowance right there. I've got that, and I'm going to be pressing that in just a second. So I'm going to lay it over here by my sewing machine, or by my iron, and I will press that in just a second. So let's go to our next piece. Our next piece, this looks a little funny, and I debated on whether leaving these lines right here on it or not. I think it's helpful for showing you how to lay this out. So we're going to need piece L, which is background, and piece B, even though it looks like it's background here, this is actually your bunny fabric. And then we're going to need piece K, which is also background. And K has a couple of pieces in it, so I'm just going to take one. Okay, so what we're going to do, here's piece B. Here is piece L. Oh, piece L has 2. I'll save that letter. Put this back on the board. Okay. So here is, let's just lay it out like this first. So you see piece L is this background square. So I'm going to put it face up, just like this. If you have a solid, there's no right or wrong side. My fabric is a white on white, and so it does have a right and wrong side, even though sometimes I don't get it correct and I notice it later. No one else will ever notice it, but I can see it. So then we're going to take the square B and put it right sides together with the L. Now this now looks like what we have here, L and B. Now I'm going to hold off on K, and we're going to draw a line on B. And again, if you have your seam tape, you don't have to draw this. You're going to draw a line. And we are going to stitch, whoops, my pen is out of ink. Let me get another one. We'll do pretty red. These friction pins come in different colors, and so that's fun, especially if you're marking on different colored fabric. Okay, so there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew right next to that line on this side of it, because we're going to be keeping this. Okay. Okay, so there, I think you can see it right there, is my stitch line. It is right next to that line. This right here is our waist, but this is a pretty big triangle. I don't like to waste that much fabric, and I like to keep half square triangles. So what I'm going to do is, before I cut this off, and you can always cut it off first, but I like to do it before because they're together, I'm just going to stitch a 1/2 inch away. And then when I cut right in the middle, this piece will have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and this piece will have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I've got a little container that I just throw my half square triangles in, because I think I'm going to be making something real cute one day. Or I could also use my half square triangles if I'm making a big project on the back of a quilt and for the backing. And that's what I've done a lot of times. So let me go ahead and go a 1/2 inch away, and I'll bring you back. Okay, so here's my line right here that I just stitched. Remember, this is the part we're using for the bunny. This is waist. So now what I'm going to do is cut right between those 2 stitches, give each of them a 1/4 inch seam allowance. This one right here, which is our waist, is now a half square triangle. And I can trim it up and take the dog ears off of it, but that can be used for another project or the backing of a quilt. Then this is the one that I'm going to be using. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now, and I'm just going to finger press it for right now, because we're going to go ahead and add our other piece. So I have this right here, and now I have L and I have B. Now you no longer see this piece right here because we trimmed that off. We see this piece right here, this bottom piece, but we know we need to just see part of that. And that's where this square comes in. And again, right sides together. I'm going to place this one right here, and matching up the sides, I'll draw my diagonal line. And again, if you need to pin, you can pin. And I'm going to sew right a hair next to that line. Okay, I didn't have my camera going, but I did go ahead and trim off that corner. That corner was too small for me. Some people might want those itty bitty half square triangles, but I just threw that one away. And here we have our block for the ear. We have it all white right here. We have the ear, and then we have the space between the ear and the head and the back. And so again, these lines were just kind of to help you see how you lay out your squares. And then you're just going to flip and trim. Let me iron this piece and the head piece, and I'll be right back. Okay, so there is that piece all ironed. I just ironed to the dark side just because it would not show through my background. It's up to you on these. There's a couple of seams that do meet on this bunny, but if it bothers you when you get ready to sew it, you can flip the seam back. And then here is the ear block. Now, as you can see, this block right here comes out just a little bit. Now, it normally won't bother me, and I can just go ahead and sew it. But if you have something like that, first of all, make sure you don't have any pleats in your seams. Then you can take a square ruler that's just bigger or the same size as your block. And our first block L had been a 4.5 inch square. So this needs to be a 4.5 inch square. And I know that, get this where you can see it. And I know that this side and this side are fine because I haven't sewn on that. So you can just take your ruler, put it on the 4.5 inch line here and here. And you can see I've got a little wonky right there. We can just take this, whoops, and cut it off. And now we have our nice, neat square. So let's take that and we're gonna put these two together. So if you want your rabbit to be excited, you can put your ear like that. I don't know about that, but so basically this is what our ear is going to look like. Now, when you lay this together, you're gonna say, oh no, I messed up. These don't match. This seam and this seam don't match. It will match. Once you get your 1/4 inch seam in there, these two will match. So you're gonna flip them over and you are going to put the right sides together. And then if you need pins, you can grab you a couple pins. And let me just show you. So 1/4 inch, now I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it, would be right about there. So I'm gonna poke it through. Whoops, gotta be right on that seam. Okay, I'm gonna poke it through and let's take a peek where that pin is. That pin is right on that seam. So that's gonna be fine. So don't get stressed out when you see that they don't match, because anytime you have a angled seam, it won't match where the edge is, but it will match 1/4 inch away. And so all I have to do now is just sew 1/4 inch away from that edge. And there we have it, the head and the ear. And I just press toward the rabbit head. So that's what we have for our first section. So I'm just gonna set that over there. Now let's work on F and L. This is a real simple part right here. F and L. We'll take F, that is the body of our bunny. And this is gonna go long ways like that. It's just a rectangle. Scoot you back there again. And L. And that is going to go right sides together in this corner right here. The top corner, top right corner. And here we go again. We're going to stitch from here to here again if you need to. And especially sometimes on these longer runs, if you want to have really good accuracy, you can put a line there. The shorter runs, it's a lot easier to do without a line. But you can still do it with your seam tape. Okay, and I'm just going to go a hair on this side of this line. Okay, there we have it. I went ahead and stitched another line 1/2 inch away because that's a big piece to waste. Another 1/2 square triangle. And then I just need to iron this, and I'm going to iron toward the dark side. And I'm just going to finger press it right now and iron it the rest of the way in a minute. This piece is ready. Now let's go to this over here. Now we're going to need to go ahead and make this whole strip. Okay, so we need this little tiny C, and I believe it's a 1 inch block. Yes, it is a 1 inch block. We need M. Right sides together, just like this. We also need D. And we've got a couple of D's here, so let's go ahead and keep the clip on them and them on the board. Right sides together and right here. Okay, so on this one, we're going to draw a line or just use the tape. And these little 1-inch squares are pretty easy to get, just eyeballing them too. And then this one's gonna go this way. Okay, so I'll do this one first. I'll go this way, pick up my presser foot, turn it this way, put it down, and go that way, and I won't have to cut thread. Okay, when we fold back our corners, making sure we've got them made, yep, and trim off our excess. And again, that would have been really small. Once you have your seam allowance on it, not worth it to me. Okay, and I will press these back in just a second. So I'm going to set this over to my ironing board here. We're going to go ahead and do E and J. So 1 E and 1 J. Okay, so on these, we are going to lay it. Now it looks like it's a square, but it's just a little bit wider here than here. I think it's 1 3/4 by 2, so it's 1/4 inch off. This is going to be where the length of this rectangle is going to be going across horizontally. So make sure you get that correct. This square J is going to go at the bottom corner right here. And we'll sew that. All right, flip it back, it works. Trim off that back. And we will set this at the ironing table. And we need piece N. Okay, and piece N does not need anything to sew to it. So let me get these 2 pieces ironed, and then we'll put these 3 pieces together. Okay, they're all ironed, so we're gonna go in right here. This is the top one, and this is the bottom one. So we're going to sew these 3 pieces together. I'll just start right there, put those 2 together, and I'll sew 1/4 inch away. Then when that's done, I will take this one and attach it right sides together and sew it 1/4 inch away, and then I'll press and I'll bring you back. Okay, I've laid this out, so we have this one piece right here. This is the piece we just finished, and then our top piece with the head and the ear. And so before we can sew any of these together, we need to get the foot and the leg on here. And so we need to go ahead and get piece G, and piece D, it looks like there's 2 D's, piece K, and K is going to go right on top of D, and piece J, and I just need one of those, and it is going to go right on the upper left corner. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, and then I need another J here. Okay, now if you need to draw your lines, you would go ahead and draw from here to here on your white square from corner to corner, on your white square from corner to corner, and then let's go ahead and piece this one because we can do that too. So H and O. Okay, and so we'll need this one right here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of chain piece it. I'm going to run this one through without breaking my thread, then I'll send this one through, then I'll send this one through and this one through, and then I'll cut my thread. So I can just move each of these through, and I will bring you back when I have that diagonal stitch on all of them. I have all of them sewn now on those diagonal lines, and I've just laid them back in place so you can kind of see where we're at. So this one right here, we're going to flip like this, and I think I'm going to actually use this end over here. I'm going to flip like this, make sure it matches. And this one's going to be like this. This one's going to be like this. And this one's going to be like that. So I'm going to trim off the excess behind each of those triangles, and I'm going to give them a good press, and I'll be right back. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to match these two, and so 1/4 of an inch away from that edge, I'm going to match these two up right here, face to face, right sides together, 1/4 of an inch away from this one. Once I get this one pieced, I will place it here, and I will sew it 1/4 of an inch. And so we'll have one big piece. I'll bring you right back. Okie dokie, we have that piece put together. So now what we have are these 4 sections. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to match, and be sure you look at this one before you start sewing it, because it's so easy to get a block turned. Just look at it carefully and make sure you have it right before you go any further. So we're going to go like this. I'm going to sew it 1/4 of an inch away. And there's that one. Now we can take this block and sew it to this one. So we'll just fold it over so right sides are together, 1/4 of an inch away from the outside edge. And there we have the bottom part of the bunny done. Now, while we were sewing this side to this side, there was nothing to match, no seams matched up here. When we sewed this bottom part to this top part here, there were no seams to match up, so it was really easy. But right here, we're going to have a couple of seams that we do need to match up. And one of them is going to be the chin right here, and the other is going to be the neck. And as you can see, when I scoot it over to where the sides match up your sides, these are off. And again, that's perfectly fine, because we are going to be sewing 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, just like up here, and it will be fine. We were fine there. It looks like that looks like the right distance. So we are just going to fold it down like this. If you want to make sure yours are going to match, you can stick the pin in it like we did a while ago. But whenever I do have seams that need to match, I do go ahead and put some pins in my fabric. That way it just kind of holds them secure. Especially when your feed dogs at the bottom are pulling your fabric, it can easily pull it out of whack. Whoops, this one I didn't get. So pull that up, and it looks like that's going to be good right there. That's one seam that's going to be matched. And this one right over here. That looks like it's going to be good right there. And I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch away from the top of this block. And there we have a good point, And there we have a good point. So if yours doesn't come out perfect, that's fine. You don't have to be perfect, especially if you have a fabric that's kind of florally and lots of different colors. Now, if it is off, there are ways of stitching a little lower if you need to bring it one direction or the other, or stitching it a little higher, and you could do that. But I wouldn't fret if you are a beginner, because no one's going to notice it if it's in a quilt. So I'm going to finish pressing this, and we have our bunny all finished. Isn't that cute? We'll be putting the applique tail on, and if you're using this like as a pillow or even as a table topper, this is funny, the eye, it looks like the eyes right there. You can put a button or something right there. You could stitch an eye in with embroidery, just whatever you want to do. I think this is hilarious. It made it right there. I might just be leaving this one like it is. So I'm going to get it ironed up, and then we'll do our carrot block. Okay, let's get started on our carrot block. I have our little layout right here. We're going to start with the carrot itself, the orange part Q. We're going to take, let's first do the top squares up here, and those are square U, and these are very small. These are 1-inch squares, and I've got 4 of them, so I just need 2. And these are going to go in each corner at the top of our carrot. Let me see if I can see which is my right side and which is the wrong side. Okay, now these should fit perfectly across because it's a 2-inch wide carrot, and these are each 1-inch blocks. So if one of them overlaps, trim it down. It shouldn't overlap. And basically we are going to go starting right here, sew to here, then come up right here and sew to here. Okay, so if you need to draw your lines, go ahead and do that. And there I have my 2 triangles there. So I'm going to trim those down. Just like that, and I'll press it in just a second. We're going to go ahead and do the bottom part of our carrot before we press. So on the bottom part, we need a V and a V. And these are bigger triangle or bigger squares. And so when we lay these on here, you can see that they are going to overlap. Well, we cannot sew both of these on at the same time. We need to do one at a time. So we're going to do this one, and we're going to sew from here to here. We're going to press it back. Then we're going to lay this one on top, and we are going to sew from corner to corner again, from here to here. And then when we press it back, our point will be a little bit above. So you're going to have a white piece right here with the point a little higher up. When they are put on, when they're smaller, they go right to the edge of that color orange fabric. Okay, so I am going to do this again. Do one, flip it back, iron, trim, and then do the other one. I'll be right back. And there we have our carrot. Now we need to add a piece right here just to make it long enough to fit with our bunny block. So that is piece W. So right sides together. I am going to sew 1/4 of an inch away from this edge. And while I'm doing that, I am going to go up here, and I'm going to get S and U. So there's S, and then I have 2 U's left. And I'm going to put these on the bottom corners of my stem block here. And again, they should not overlap. They should be just exactly right. They're 1-inch squares, and that's a 2-inch wide piece. So I'm going to be sewing from here to here, from here to here, and then flipping that back just like we did on this one. So I'll do 2 things while I'm gone this time. 1/4 of an inch away. So this one will be long enough now. And then diagonal stitching right there. Okay, I've added that piece, and I went ahead and trimmed those and pressed them down. So now we have that. So before we sew this together, let's go ahead and make this piece over here. We have T, and we have 2 R's. And we are just going to take T, and it's going to be lengthwise like this. And we're going to do the same thing like we did at the bottom of the carrot. We're going to do this one first. We're going to draw a line or whatever you need to do, stitch right there, then press it back and trim it. Then after that one's done, you're going to lay this one on it. You're going to do your diagonal stitch from here to here, and then you're going to press it back and trim it. So you'll have that piece right there. So I'm going to do this. Okay, I have that one done. And on these, you could press both of them back, but in order to reduce the thickness, I usually do one direction and one the other, and it seems to not have quite as much bulk. So that is where this one's going to go. So all we're going to do now is stitch this one across here, then open it up, press it, stitch this one across here, open it up, press it, and we'll have our carrot block. So I'll bring you back when I've got it done. And here is our carrot block right there. And it is really cute. Then let's put our bunny block over here. Now we have an option with this carrot block. We can have it going like this, so it's got the green part at the top, or you can turn it around and have it like this. Either way is fine, whichever way you want to do it. Let's see. I might go ahead and have him holding it so it's up, like he's eating the tip of it. If you had it like this, he would be holding it and maybe sniffing the green part or handing it to somebody. So it's whatever you want to do with your block. And I really don't know which I prefer. I like them both. I think I'll try this way for this one. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to flip this one like this, and there are no matching seams. You know, you thought if you think maybe that this right here is matching, it doesn't have to match. You don't have to have it matching. It's fine. It can go anywhere. So I am going to put a few pins in it since it's a pretty long piece, and I don't want it to pull one direction or the other and make one block stick out further. So I am ready to take this and sew all the way down 1/4 of an inch away. And there we have our rabbit and our carrot block. They are all put together, and we've got our rabbit eating its carrot. And it kind of looks a little funny here because we don't have our 1/4 inch seam on there yet. But once that 1/4 inch seam is being used, it will balance it out, so it'll be just perfect. Also, the tail won't be quite as pointy over here. And remember, we are going to be covering this up with a circle. If your seam allowance is correct, you will have this block measuring 11 by 12.5 at this point. And we've come to the end of part 1. We've made the bunny block and the carrot block and assembled the two together. In our next video, we will be adding the sashing, the border, and then turning it into either a pillow or a table topper or wall hanging. We will also be adding that tail to the bunny too, so be on the lookout for part 2. It will be released really soon. And remember, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe. It will let me know that you're enjoying this type of content, and I'll continue making it. Thanks again.